Welcome to the Health Coach Nation podcast. My name is Hailey Rowe, and I'm a sales and marketing coach and LinkedIn lead generation service provider. I work with health, life, and mindset coaches and online service-based business owners to help them get more sales, shift their time to the client-generating activities instead of just the busy work, and overcome that social media overwhelm. Let's get into the show. If you've been working at your coaching business for a while, you might have found out by now that it's not as easy as you thought to get clients. If that is you, I want to invite you to check out my free workshop sharing how to go from crickets to clients, creating a freebie funnel formula. So in the series, I share with you how to make a freebie that people actually want, that they actually opt into, so that you can grow your email list, so that you always have an audience to share your offers with. And you always have an audience where they are being nurtured by you, they're moving through the sales cycle, and you're not stuck every time you have a launch feeling like you have zero eyeballs on your content. So if that has been you, if you've been stuck in that and you know you need a bigger audience, you know you need to nurture your audience, go to haileyrowe.com/live event, all one word, to get the free series and get started. How do you know if your coaching revenue goal is realistic? The reason I'm doing this topic is because this question came up twice this week on discovery calls. I was talking to two coaches who want support with growing their business. Both had very ambitious goals, and they both asked, what do you think? Like, is this delusional? Is this on track? Have you seen this happen before? And so I thought I'd make a video for you to help you understand what should you be factoring in when setting a revenue goal in your business, and how do you know if it's even likely or if it is way off trend with the industry and things like that. So the first thing I just want to share with you is entrepreneurship is risk, right? It's emotional risk, it's financial risk, it's just not the normal path, right? And so when you're setting goals in this new arena, it is really important to not fall for some of the common mistakes that I see that cause people to burn out, that cause people to be disappointed, things like that. So the truth is, most people, if you've ever heard this Grant Cardone quote about how most people vastly underestimate what's required to get to their goals, I think that is a really good point. Most people just pull a number out of the sky and they don't really look at what is going to be my process for getting there. They don't make a plan. They don't evaluate their failures or mistakes along the way so that they can keep getting better. They just kind of pick something and then randomly try to do things. And when it doesn't go as fast as they'd like, or it doesn't go the way they want, they get disappointed, and then they burn out, and then they stop, and then they're inconsistent, and then their business loses ground because they stopped for 3 months. So we really have to make a plan, and we have to assess. All right, so we're going to go through a process you can use to do that. But before we do that, let's go through some common mistakes you might be making when you set a revenue goal. The first mistake is what I said before, setting a goal without a plan. So just saying you want, 10K months or 20K months or $300,000 a year, but then you haven't actually looked at, okay, what conversion numbers does that require? How many discovery calls would I need to be then booking a week? How many new people might need to be discovering me each week for me to book calls and book enough calls to where I hit my conversion numbers that I need to hit, right? So we'll dive into some math questions later today that'll help you with your plan, but that's the first thing, is don't just pull a number out of the sky and then hope you get there. Actually look at, okay, well, if I'm charging X dollars and I want to, hit that within X number of months or within a year, what would that actually need to look like as far as how, if I'm having, let's say, a 20% conversion rate on my discovery calls, how many would I need to hit that number by my timeline, right? So Setting goals without a plan is a big mistake. And when I say a plan, I don't just mean looking at the math. I also mean breaking down this week. What are your client generating activities? How many offers to your freebie? Meaning, if you have a freebie before your paid offer, like a lead magnet, how many offers are you going to be making this week to get it out there? How many times are you going to talk about what you do on social media? We have to look at that and not just have a vague, oh, I'll probably post here and there when I feel like it, or I'll probably plan an email when I feel like it. We have to have a plan. The second mistake is copying what other people are doing just because you think that's the way you should get to your goals. Really, what we want to do, because somebody else we don't know the whole picture, right? We don't know how long someone's been a coach. We don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. We don't know if they have an abundant amount of time or if they're mothering 4 kids. We don't know if they have a full-time team or if they're doing it solo. So it's such a bad idea to just copy what somebody else is doing blindly when they're a totally different person with totally different circumstances. And instead, what you want to do is you do want to look at the clues. Like, you do want to look at what is working for other people and what are some ideas or hypotheses, what's my hypothesis about how this might work for me? And what could I do to actually start trying that and implementing that this week? And then getting off of the social media, getting off of the comparison once you have your plan and sticking to it. And then evolving your plan as time goes on, because you're going to get more feedback that will allow you to evolve your plan. The other mistake I see is ignoring what's required to get to your goals. So not just the plan required to get to your goals, but actually the emotional things required to get to your goals, the emotional skill set you're going to have to learn, this stamina skill set, like of not giving up or staying consistent on days you don't feel like it, things like that. Time management is going to play a huge role in whether or not you determine your goal. You hit your goal. Sales skills is going to play a role in whether or not you hit your goal. And when you don't have anything to help you build these skills, like you're just kind of winging it, you're going on your own, and just thinking, I'll work harder, you probably aren't going to hit your goals. So we cannot ignore, when you set a goal, I want you to look at it and not just say, okay, this is my goal, I hope I get there. I want you to actually look at what's required of me emotionally to hit this goal. What kind of feelings am I going to have to get better at feeling? What kind of ways am I going to have to set myself up for success for when I do get rejected and I do want to quit for that day because I got a no and I feel embarrassed? What am I going to do to bring myself back, right? Same thing with time management. What probably is going to get in the way this week? What lifey life things are going to be standing in my way? And how am I actually going to tend to those things, or say no to extra obligations, or remove things from my plate, or have them on my plate but not let it stop me from working on my business and set aside a time in the morning or the evening to make sure that I'm hitting my business time, right? The other thing is sales skills, like I said. So you can't ignore that you have to raise your capacity for marketing and selling, and you have to learn those skills. So if you don't have something that's regularly, like a coach, like the Inner Circle, where my clients every week are learning marketing and sales and how to apply it to their business, you got to determine how are you going to learn those skills. And some of it's going to be through trial and error, but also, could you equip yourself with tools to learn faster? Could you work with a mentor? Could you, have a practice discovery call with a friend and run through the structure you're going to follow, things like that. So don't just set a goal. Look at what's involved emotionally that I need to get better at, what's involved energy-wise and stamina-wise that I'm going to have to build up, what's involved time-wise and how will I make sure I make the time and not get distracted. What will I do to be looking at my sales skills every week and practicing? And then the last thing is, don't make the mistake of thinking that revenue grows linearly, meaning it's just going to be each week you're just going to be making more and more. It's actually something in business where business is cyclical a lot of the time, and business will ebb and flow depending on what you're doing that month and how many events you're speaking at and things like that. So we really need to remember that this is a cumulative goal, like this is like over the span of a year. we want to make this much, and it may not look the same each month exactly by the amount you're making each month, okay? And the other thing is you'll see jumps when you start to get your systems in place. Like maybe the first month you make some money, but then you get slowed down because you're actually working with clients and you don't have systems for that yet, and you're spending so much time on client delivery that you have zero time for marketing. And then you get some systems down in your client delivery that allows you to move faster and smoother, and then you have more time to continue the marketing while you're working with the clients, and so on and so forth. And once you start to figure those systems out, you're going to see the more consistent you're going to see your revenue be. But when you're building it for the first time, it is going to ebb and flow while you're building the systems. So just to recap, don't make the mistake of, not having a plan at all. Don't make the mistake of just copying what other people are doing and thinking that's sufficient for you. Always, it's not. You learn clues from other people's success, but don't just blindly copy. The other thing is, don't ignore, like I said, the emotional capacity and things that you're going to have to be expanding within yourself skills-wise to grow in your business. And then also just making sure that you're not expecting a linear path and thinking that if it's not linear, you've failed. You have not failed. Even to this day, I've had a business since 2017. It's so interesting to look back at my numbers because I have some months where I'm like crushing it. And then I know for some reason, like April is a slower month for me. And it's kind of like history shows. April is a slower month, and that's okay. And now I plan for it. I know it. I don't know why that is, but maybe in April I don't know what happens. But the point is, I don't judge. I still always end up hitting around my goals. It doesn't matter that I have one bad month. It's just kind of what I've noticed as a pattern, and now I just plan for that, right? So it doesn't have to be a linear thing. Now let's talk about 4 questions you can use to double check if your goal is realistic or not, or if maybe it's a little bit off, okay? So the first one is we got to do some offer math. So how much is your offer priced at? And how many clients would it take to hit your goal? And ask yourself, can you actually deliver to that number of clients? And if the answer is no, we may need to look at, maybe you need to raise your prices, or maybe you need to make your program longer and more of a commitment and have less clients at a longer commitment level. Like maybe you work with each client for 6 months for a higher rate instead of having, a 1-month package that you need to sell X number of to make it, quote unquote. So make sure it's realistic as far as what you can deliver, and make sure that if you're just selling single sessions and you're selling them at $50 and your goal is to get to 200K, well, that is a lot of clients you're going to have to be seeing. And that sounds like a lot of, reselling every single week to clients to get them to continue their $50 sessions with you. Like that's just doesn't sound realistic. So do a little bit of a temperature check on that. The second thing to check in on is conversion math, like we said. So how many consults or sales calls would you need to sign one client if you're doing sales calls? If you're selling something that's under $1,000 and you have a sales page and it doesn't, they don't have to book a call with you before they buy or anything like that, then obviously this is going to be different. You're going to have to decide what is my conversion rate on my sales page. But if for most of you who are starting out who are coaches, you're probably going to do a discovery call and offer a higher ticket thing, something over $1,000. And if that's the case, you want to think about, okay, if the industry standard is 20% close rate on discovery calls, well, let's say mine's a little above average, or let's say mine's a little below average. If you already know that information based on your history, you can incorporate that into the math. If you don't know, then just maybe go with the traditional 20%, for example, which would actually be good. And ask yourself, how many consults would I need to sign one client? Now, I want to add the caveat that if you're doing a lot of pre-qualifying, like you have, application they have to fill out and stuff, you're going to get less discovery calls, but they're also probably going to convert at a higher level. When you're starting out, I say don't add as little friction as possible for people to book calls with you because you're new and you need the practice, and we don't want to make it hard for people. But if you're like, well, I want a conversion rate higher than 20% for sure. Okay, fine, pre-qualify more. You're going to get less calls, but they probably will convert higher. So think about the conversion math. The third thing to ask yourself is, do you have enough leads coming in to generate those calls? So we call this audience math. Do you have enough people finding you, whether it's locally or online or on your email list, to generate those calls? And if the answer is no, then part of your plan, a big part of your plan, is going to have to be lead gen. And you're going to have to decide, am I going to do local lead gen, meaning am I going to get involved in my community and do guest talks and form referral partnerships, or am I going to do a lot online? And what could that look like? Is it going to be on LinkedIn and I'm going to start sending connection requests out to my collab partners or potential clients? Does it look like me starting to generate leads by being on podcasts and promoting my email list and trying to be on a podcast every week? Like, what is going to be one of your lead gen strategies? And trust me, a lot of you guys are going to overthink that. You're going to think, well, I got to do all these things all at once, or, I need to start a webinar or whatever. And there's a time and a place for a webinar, but just decide something that gets you in front of eyeballs this week and try not to overcomplicate it for yourself. Pick something to start with, and you can always add on or layer on or evolve it as you go. But don't let paralysis of like, well, I don't have a webinar, or I don't have, newsletters going out yet to an email list, so I can't grow my email list or whatever. Your brain's going to come up with reasons why you can't grow your leads this week. And your job is to redirect it to all the reasons why you can and how you can start with the path of least resistance this week. Okay. And you're going to have to keep amplifying that and giving it more volume. But one just mistake I see is people just not starting because they are trying to be so perfect. And then the last thing we have to think about is lifestyle alignment. So this isn't really math, but this is something you want to consider. Does this goal fit your bandwidth? Does this goal fit the lifestyle you want to have? Meaning, do you want to be coaching 50 one-on-one clients and then scale to a group program or whatever? I personally do think in the beginning of your business, you will want to work with some private clients so that you get a feel for what they really want and need. You get better at coaching, and you can start to develop a scalable thing like a group offer or a membership or whatever it is you want to offer in the future. So I do think there's a time and place for really just like getting a lot of private clients, working with a lot of private clients, hitting kind of your capacity for that and seeing what that is and what that feels like. And then scaling to a group program or membership. I think there's like a time and place, but I also don't want you to, if you work a full-time job and you're starting your business and you only have room for realistically five private clients a week or something, then we need to account for that. We need to charge appropriately for that. We need to make sure that, you aren't being unrealistic and thinking I can do 20 clients a week when you do work full time, you parent, you homeschool your kids, or whatever else you do, right? So does the goal fit the bandwidth? Now, there is also an argument for if it doesn't and your business is important to you, you might need to let some other projects go to make room for this. Having your own business has sacrifices involved. And I see so many people just hiding that or like skipping over that, especially the bro marketers who are like, you can make $10 million tomorrow. There are going to be sacrifices you have to make sometimes when you're starting a business. I don't care where you're starting from, you will. There's just stuff in the beginning of my business. I did sometimes work on the weekends. I did, sometimes have late nights. I did sometimes spend way longer on something than I wanted to spend because I was learning it for the first time. There was sacrifices, and there still are. Even as you grow, even as you hit new ceilings, there'll be new things to learn. But you just want to make sure that you're not purposely setting yourself up for lifestyle misalignment. So for me, like I never pulled all-nighters yes, I had late nights, but I would never pull an all-nighter in my business or procrastinate till the last minute for a presentation that's the next day, or, stuff like that. So that was out of lifestyle alignment for me. That's just a non-negotiable for me. Same thing with like my walks or my workout time. Like I want to take my walk, and I will take my walk. And if my business suffers because I took my walk, well, that's how it's going to be. So set your goals for lifestyle alignment. Make sure you're not setting goals that are going to burn you out for sure, that you know are going to burn you out. Now, the other thing is we want to make sure that you're not thinking you need certain things to hit your goal that you don't need. Okay, so do a little reality check with yourself and ask yourself, am I telling myself before I can start towards this revenue goal, I need to get an additional certification, or I need to, get a fancy website before I can start, or I need to get a beautiful logo before I can start? Your brain is going to tell you need certain things that you probably don't need, and it's going to act like you cannot move forward until you get that. And I would like you to question that, because a big pitfall is overthinking and over planning certain parts that you don't need to get started. Like, I started my business with a Google Doc that summarized my offer and market research interviews, and making an offer, like doing a free coaching call as a thank you for the market research interviews. And that was my first clients. One of my first clients came from that market research interview thing. And then one of my other clients came from a Facebook group I commented in. And then another client came from me posting on Instagram, but that was like far and few between at the beginning. So I didn't need a fancy website. I didn't need to keep getting 42 different certifications, because if I just know more, then more people will want to work with me. I did get a lot of certifications just because I wanted to, and I did fall for that trap for a period of time that, oh yeah, more certifications equals more clients. But I realized quickly that a lot of the things I thought I needed, I actually didn't, to start booking clients, making revenue, and reaching that revenue goal. Okay, so now I want to go a little deeper on some of the skills you have to build that people overlook, that coaches overlook. Because if you overlook these things, then your plan is not realistic. So we need to look at emotional staying power. How long are you willing to stick with your goal and refine it until it works? And that's how we know if you're going to get there or not. Emotionally, are you willing to handle rejection? Are you willing to have slow weeks? Are you willing to stop letting comparison be the thief of your joy? Are you willing to sometimes be embarrassed going live on social media or talking about your offer? We have to raise the willingness for you to hit your goals. The second thing you're going to have to really grow in is how much you're learning and how much you're able to take on. So intellectual growth is something we have to look at. Meaning, you need to set up a strategy for yourself. You need to learn how to follow through on the strategy. You need to learn how to take in information in a way where you don't just completely check out and get overwhelmed. You have to determine your system for that. And you have to learn how to say no to certain information and park it, and say yes to other information and implement it. The other thing we have to do is look at our marketing confidence. So if you have zero marketing confidence right now because you've never done it and you don't know how to attract consistent leads, your goal is not going to be realistic. We have to start implementing what is it that you're doing each week to learn marketing. What is it each week that you're doing to make offers and build your confidence doing that? With my clients, we do that through their weekly business protocol. We put together a weekly business protocol that has their weekly targets and what to do for those targets, and they know what they're selling because we refine their offer and their message before they start the marketing part. But you have to figure out what you're going to do to build that up for yourself. And the other thing is the sales skills, like I said, but that one comes from practice. It also comes from learning sales with a mentor or however you're going to choose to learn about it. But you got to raise your ability to make an offer directly and to offer to help someone and to not feel like you have to always be proving yourself or justifying your prices, meaning you have to learn how to say your price with confidence and then stop talking and not be like, but I'll give you a discount or whatever it is, right? So that's going to be a part of your goal journey. The other part of your goal journey is being adaptable. You're going to have to be open to the plan changing. The plan's probably going to change a million different times along the way. It's not a set it and forget it. It's a set it, get the feedback, and then adapt it. So being able to pivot, being able to have weeks where life throws you something you weren't expecting and you still find a way to do at least something for your business without completely checking out. And then the last thing is time management. As we talked about, you gotta learn how to say yes to the income producing activities, things that put you in front of your ideal client, things that put you in front of your ideal partners, things that allow you to share your message in various ways, and say no to things that maybe are keeping you hidden, keeping you in the busy work, things that are like obsessing over your Instagram graphic when it already is probably decent enough and you could post it and move on with your day instead of spending 48 hours making your Instagram post. So, and just a side note, let yourself spend a lot of time on your first ever Instagram post because it's your first time doing it, and just expect that. But don't, give yourself unlimited amount of time to where you let yourself take 2 weeks and then you're completely depleted. So these skills are what we build in the inner circle. That is my small group and private coaching program where we're working through how are you going to be marketing? How are you going to be selling? What are you selling? How are you doing with managing your overwhelm, with breaking things down, with not getting defeated when you get a no on a discovery call? And we do it through both structure. So every week you're going to have structure of what to be focused on, but we also do it through community. Like we have community small group calls each week. And we also do it through customization. You're able to interact with me in a private client community as much as you need with your questions, with what's going on. And I'm giving you feedback all along the way. And I've had clients who didn't think their goal was realistic and they hit it and they surprised themselves. And that's like the best feeling ever. And then I've also had clients who maybe don't have a clear goal in mind and just know they want to book clients, and we do that. And then they set a goal and because they start to get a grasp of like what's possible and they build their confidence. So wherever you're at in your goal setting journey, I'm able to help you either form a goal, or if you have a goal, I'm able to tell you if it's realistic or not, or how we can make it more realistic. But these are the kinds of things I work on with clients, is keeping them connected to their goals, keeping them from not drifting, not letting their, life continue to get in the way. And then it's another year later and they still haven't started their coaching business, or they still haven't, even been consistent for 1 week working on their coaching business. So if you are trying to figure out, what's possible, you want to grow your business, you want to grow your revenue, you feel like you're focusing on the wrong things, you can book a free consult at HaileyRowe.com, and we'll talk about how you can go about achieving your goals and the kind of things you're going to have to build up, whether it's emotionally, whether it's logically, and just skills to get to your goals. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. And if it's really helpful for you, I'd really appreciate if you share it and or leave a written podcast review. This tells the podcast sites that our show is useful and it will be promoted to more people that way. Thanks again.